Today I want to talk about music. Music has been a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid. My dad was in a two-man band that would do area concerts. They would do. They had a radio show to Saturday Morning Jamboree on our AM radio station. This was back in the '60s and '70s. Him and his partner cut a 45, cut a record. Actually got to go to Nashville. Lucky for me, things didn't work out because I probably wouldn't be here. But I think about music and I think about the discipline that's required to be really good. I remember watching my dad play and sing for years as a kid. I marveled at how incredible him and his partner were playing and singing the guitar. The amazing part was, as somebody who's learning to play the guitar, there are those that can play chords like this. That's a G. And there are people that can play all the chords and pick. That's picking. Both of these guys could do both at the same time. They were incredible musicians. And as I watch back, there's plenty of YouTube videos of the guys like Chet Atkins and some of those musicians back in the day. I think Dad and his abilities with his partner were just as good, just as entertaining, just as impressive. I have some regrets with my father about music, about never really learning how to play the guitar from Dad, because Dad was so good. Dad was so incredible, but he wasn't the most patient person. He wasn't the most patient person in the world when it come to teaching somebody how to play. He just didn't understand why you didn't get it. You know, why he'd run a riff off or something, or some chords or a song, and he didn't understand. By the time I got old enough to really learn, it was more of a, my part of the participation was music, in the music family was singing. I always got asked to help sing once I got old enough, and enjoyed that very much. We sang at a lot of events as a family. That was really fun. By looking at me and by looking behind me, you can tell that I have a great interest in music. I own 5 guitars, 2 mandolins and a banjo. And the only thing I can halfway play is the guitar. If you look behind me, the guitar with the eagle on it was the one that my dad gave me. Now that was the cheap one. Dad played with a really old Gibson that still is a family heirloom. He was just fantastic, and so that's kind of stayed at the home place since Dad passed away. But I think about music and what it takes. I can have all the guitars in the world, but that doesn't make me a musician. I'll tell you a story about how I got this one. This is called a Breedlove. This is not a hugely popular brand, but I went on vacation with my family in Florida about 3 years ago, and we went to this little strip mall where you walked all the shops, and we had a wonderful time. But I found a music store, and I sat down, and there was this really young kid in there. I mean, really young kid. And he was so cool. He was so awesome. I asked if I was interested in anything in particular, and I said, "Hey, the family shop, and I just want to sit down, and I just want to stay in the music store." He said, "I tell you what, man, play anything you want to." And they had all the brands, the Fenders and some of the Martins, and so I would play. I would go to guitar, and he'd check on me every once in a while. I was there for hours, and I finally asked him, what we don't often do as leaders, when we see somebody young that has a good attitude. I said, "Which one would you play? Which one would you, if somebody came in and said, 'Hey, I want you to perform for me,' what would you play?" And he picked this stuff off the shelf, the Breedlove, and he said, "For the money, this is the best guitar you can buy." He said, "It's beautifully made, it sounds awesome," and he said, "It just feels right." You know, one of the things that I wanted, because I'm not very good, is I wanted a built-in tuner, which it had. It has a jack for an amp, you know, if I ever so desire to hook an amp to it. And I said, well, you know, let me try it. And I sat down and I started playing, and I couldn't put it down the rest of the day. It was just incredible. It just felt right for me. So I ended up, of course, talking him down a couple $100 and ended up making this purchase of, you know, a nice guitar, because I didn't really have a nice guitar. And I apply that to the leadership principles that I often talk about when I make these videos. Is, you know, this guitar doesn't do any good sitting in its case. It's got a really nice case. I've got a capo for it to change the, you know, the pitch, but it doesn't do any good. I'm not going to get any better at playing this guitar unless I get it out of the case. One of the things that I do is I will find a song that I really like, you know, a country song or you know, whatever the genre that I think I could actually learn to play. I'll find it on the internet. I'll find it with the lyrics and the chords above it, because there are very few songs that are in my brain that I could play and sing at the same time. You know, very few, because I can't remember. I'm not good enough. I'm not practiced enough to do those things. So I've got my music stand with a book full of music that I like to play, and you know, I always call myself a back porch picker, because that's where I belong. I don't belong up in front of people. The nervous that I've ever got, and I've spoken in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. I've spoke at funerals, I've spoke at training events, I've spoke at you know, all this regional stuff that I've done, the training I've done, the TV that I've done. I've never gotten nervous until I get up in front with a guitar in my hand, because I'm so uncertain about my skills on the guitar. And that's my fault. I have no excuse. I have the resources to find the songs that I like to play. I know people that play really well that when they're around, I just marvel at how good they are. But I tie it back to, you know, my devotion to leadership and self-betterment. When I've got an hour in the evenings, instead of getting out the guitar like sometimes I probably should, you know, I'll watch a video on, you know, somebody that I respect in the leadership world, the professional world. I'll listen to a podcast. You know, there's a bunch that I listen to get some motivation, to get some ideas on how to prevent there being a lull in you know, my leadership abilities and activities and persuasions. But I think playing the guitar is the same way. You know, I can get tired of playing the same 4 or 5 chords all the time, and I'm never going to get better unless I try it, unless I get out of my comfort zone. That's one of the things that you know, I've tried to work on with this guitar, and you know, I love music so much. You can tell by hanging behind me, and on the other side of the fireplace is more instruments, and I've got 2 guitars in, you know, a closet that, you know, they're not worth a lot of money, but they're important to me. They each have a certain value to them, to me. But I'm not going to get better unless I work at it, and I know that. Leadership's the same way. That's one of the reasons I created this video series and this website, and I'm doing the things that I'm doing, because there are people out there that want to learn, that want to get better, that want to engage people from leadership, but they really don't know how. It's like me. I want to play this song, but I don't know how to play this song. So I can look up YouTube videos and people will show me how to play the song, or I can take the easy way and I can go on the internet and find the song with the lyrics and the chords, so I'll know when to change chords. And that's what I usually do. I take the shortcut. That's what we do in leadership. We take the shortcut. How hard are you willing to work to get where you want to go? How much effort are you willing to put in? You know, I feel like musically I could be really good if I applied myself. But right now, that's not my priority. Right now, my priority is teaching and learning and mentoring and helping others be successful. But you know, when you find somebody, and I've let several people play this guitar, and they're just, man, it sounds beautiful, but I can't make it sound that way because I don't have the abilities that they do. So the basis of playing guitar is G, C, D, and you can throw in an E, and I really struggle with F, and there's one chord that's D that I can't play to save my life. And instead of me working on that, and you think about that from a leadership perspective, I know one of the weaknesses in playing music is D. Instead of working on that and challenging myself to be better with that, I avoid songs that have D in it. The first thing I look at when I'm scrolling, you know, I'll do a screenshot or print off a song that I want to learn. First thing I look at is B. And if there's a B, I skip it because I can't play B. I struggle with B. What I should do is make myself learn to play B. I should make myself get off of these 4 chords, which it's amazing how many songs you can play with just 4 chords. It really is. But when you're in a room full of musicians, and sometimes I do that, these guys that can just flat out play, there are often times that I sit there like this because I just can't keep up. I can't move my hand. My brain doesn't act fast enough to recognize what chord they're going to next. That's kind of an art form, but it's also a skill, and it's something that I do not possess. Although I'd really like to. You know, my favorite instrument in my house is my dad's mandolin. You know, I remember Dad playing that mandolin my whole life, and when he passed away, that's the one thing I asked for, was for that mandolin. I get it out every once in a while just to hold it, just to make sounds with it. But a mandolin's one of those, it's so hard to play because unlike a guitar, I can sit here with a guitar and I can play, probably I could pick out a song from my book and you would probably recognize, especially if I sang the lyrics. But with a mandolin, there's nothing to play with. You know, it's got 8 strings, 2 of each one. So the sound is very distinct, it's very beautiful, but G is really plain, D is really plain. And unless you learn to pick, nobody's ever going to know what I'm playing if I've got that mandolin out. The guitar's different. It's a different level. So I know leaders that are, you know, like the basic guitar. They do enough to get by. You know, they're really not going to be called out in their lack of ability and of experience unless they're in a room full of other leaders or they're asked to do something that they're not comfortable doing. And that happens to us a lot. You know, the best leaders are the ones that can, you know, sit in a room with the other great leaders and chime in when they need to, not try and take the center stage, not try and, you know, get their point across any harder than anybody else. But it's that understanding of people's abilities and how people respond to different challenges is one of the keys of leadership. And the same with playing the guitar. How, you know, I decide that I want to get better. I just have to get better. The one thing I have to do is put myself in an environment with those people that are really, really good. Just like leadership. You know, if you really want to grow as a leader, put yourself in the influence of somebody that's doing what you want to do. You know, if you're a corporal in an organization or you're a salesman in an organization and you want to take the next step, put yourself in a room with the people that are doing the next step and make sure that they're doing it really well. As a musician, there are plenty of people that play music all over the place that musicians are so friendly. Yeah, come on in. And they will play down to your level, but you don't want that. You want to try to play up to their level. So when I play with other musicians, I do my best to keep up. And when I've got time, if there's a break, I'll ask them, what was that chord, that changeover from D to F? How did you do that? One of the guys that I admire so much is he's a distant cousin, but he was the partner with my dad's singing group. It's his son. And he could play and pick every song that they could. And I asked him one time, his name's Howard. I said, Howard, how did you learn to play all these songs? And he said, I sat down and played over and over and over until I learned. I listened to the tape recording of our dad's, and then I would go back and try to find those notes on the guitar. Hours and hours and hours he spent. But when you see him playing in a group, he looks like it's natural, like he's Beethoven, like he just sat down and knew how to play. But he said you wouldn't believe the hours it took to learn these songs. He's willing to put the work in to play those songs, to keep that music alive. We're talking music that a lot of people's never heard of. The Wilburn Brothers, the Bellamy Brothers, Marty Robbins, some of the really old music that a lot of people have never heard and a lot of people's forgotten. So I think my message today is to be like the guitar. Find the instrument that you want to get great at and practice. Put yourself in an environment where you can better yourself. As you're learning to progress and you get better in your skills, don't accept the fact that now you can play 4 chords or 5 chords or 6 chords. Don't accept the fact that you're in a leadership position and you're comfortable, because you never want to be comfortable. Like me, the most uncomfortable position I'm in is when I'm asked to sing and play the guitar in front of people, because this is the thing that I struggle with the most, but I love it. So it's a progression, just like learning music. Leadership is a progression, and I encourage you to do that to get better.